Hey guys, so we're gonna take another look at Gravit Designer today. Yeah, we're gonna make an actual image today using vector graphics, using the pen tool, using a bunch of different tools that we can find within Gravit. So I'm gonna go ahead and create an 11 by 8.5 document. You can also do paper size 11 by 8.5. Once you do that, you should get something like this. And we're going to take a look at some of the tools that Gravit has in it in order to make a pretty cool looking shield. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go to my pen tool, which is right here up on the top of your bar here. The shortcut for it is P. So if you push P, you'll see that your mouse will change into the pen tool. And what I'm going to do is I want to make kind of this cool shield crest thing out of the pen tool. So I'm going to click, and you'll notice that you have our pen options that pop up. And if I push, if I'm just kind of moving around like this, you'll see that it follows the mouse wherever it goes. And if I push shift, it'll snap to basically 45-degree angles. So I'm going to go down. I'm basically be drawing the half of the shield here. So I'm going to click when I'm ready for it. Right there, it looks good. And now I can do another curve. I'm going to bring this one up to about here, and I'm going to make a curve like this. Now if you want, you can also once again push shift in order to get this perfect up and down sort of a arc. Something like that looks good. And you'll notice that the curve continues. So if you want, you could make kind of this heart shape. I'm not very interested in that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click again. That'll get rid of one of my handles. And then I can finish off the other half. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and get a nice curve, something like that. Good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not totally happy with this shape. So I'm going to go and push D. And D is our sub-selection tool. And now I can click on one of these handles and I can move some stuff around. I can also move around handles and the anchor points. That looks a little better. So basically what we've got now is half of a shield. Push V and get my regular selection tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this object. So I'm going to push Alt, click, and drag, and I'm going to push Shift at the same time. If I don't push Shift, I can put it wherever I want. But if I push Shift, it'll snap to exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to move it till it's just basically touching the edge of that other shield, the right-hand side. And you'll see these guides pop up. If you don't have guides pop up, they're called snaps. Make sure that your snaps are engaged, and you can just have all these for snap zones, all of those ready to go, enabled. Okay, well that doesn't really look like a shield just yet. So what I want to do is I'm going to want to try and flip this thing around. So what I'm going to do is there's an option here called flip horizontal. I'm going to click on that. And basically what I've got now is I've got a shield, right? It flips it around. Now we still have two halves, right? Two separate halves of this shield, and I want them to be together. So I'm going to click and drag and select both sides of the shield. And up here we have basically our creating compound shape options. So if you push Union, what will happen is now you have one shape between that are linked together, right? It's all one shape now. You can go ahead and you can edit within it, right? It didn't destroy the two shapes, but they are kind of linked together, and for all intents and purposes now one shape. So we can move this around. I'm going to move this angle here a little bit further down. So I'm going to push D. I'll see that. Select both of these. And I'm going to try and get these to look just right. but it's not working. Zoom in a little bit here. There you go, something like that. Okay, I'm happy with that shape. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to give this shape a bit of a fill. So instead of just a white thing, I'm just going to grab a nice gray, because this is going to end up being a shield. Something like that. And if you want to get rid of the border, it's called a stroke, you can just push the eyeball on the right hand side here, and that'll get rid of that stroke. Okay, now what I'm going to do is on this shield, we're basically going to put like kind of a like a picture, essentially. So I'm going to attach this image here onto Google Classroom, so you can take a look at that, and all you need to do is right click on it, hit copy image, and go into our Gravit Designer again, and go Control V, and that will end up pasting right into the program your selection here. And what I'm going to try and do is we're going to trace this eagle shape for the most part, and we're going to change it around a little bit, and we're going to paste it onto our shield, kind of like a crest or a coat of arms. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. On the left-hand side here, you'll see that there is all the paths that we've created so far. We have our compound shape, which is our shield, and we've got our image here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the image. So now what happens is I cannot move this around. I'm also going to lock our compound shape so we don't accidentally move that around as well. All right. And what's going to happen next is I'm going to select my pen tool, the path tool, and I'm going to start tracing this eagle head image. So I'm going to start the bottom of the beak here, and I'm just going to click. And now we can start tracing around this image. So I'm going to, the best way to trace images with vector graphics is you want to have as few points as possible. So one option is you could go around like this and push, click, 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 click. This isn't what we want to do. You end up getting this really kind of blotchy, blocky sort of a image, and we don't want that. We want things to be as smooth as possible. Okay, so we want as few clicks as we can manage. Okay, so I'm gonna, with our first click here, I'm gonna go to this point right here, right where it starts getting straight along this top part. I'm gonna click there, and I'm gonna click and hold, and I'm gonna move this around until it matches up perfectly with the curve of the beak. So something like that. Now I'm gonna click again because I don't want a curve along this top part, so I'm just gonna click here. And now it'll be a straight line. So I'm going to click, and once again it should go straight to where I want it to go. Click again. Now here we don't actually have an end point to this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of guess, and I'm going to guess that it goes to right about there, and you can just kind of use your judgment. And again, try and match that curve as close as you can. Okay, so click and drag and release. Click again for a point. I'm going to make this one a bit of a curve like that. Click again. Use your space bar to navigate if you're zoomed in. Now this one, let's see if we can make it 1. Oh, if you're running out of space, looks like something weird happened there. Just going to scroll down. There we go. So almost every point, every curve should just be from the start of the curve to the end of the curve. Click again. So try to do it in as few clicks as possible. Now this one, I'm going to actually, sometimes it is okay to have a few clicks, especially in the middle. But for this one, I'm going to click and drag in the middle just so I have a bit of a guide when I go into this side here. So I'm going to go to about right about there. Now, if for whatever reason you have you want to like work on something else for a moment, you can always click off of your image just by pushing V or P or anything else, or escape, clicking another key, and what happens is now we have just our stroke. We don't have any fill in this yet. We can always put fill in. Right, it's going to look something like that right now, which isn't great. And we can also tone this down so we can see what we're working with if we wanted a fill in our design. And let's say we went into something else when we were working on something else, but we weren't quite done this yet. We can always go back, just by again pushing P. Make sure that's selected. If you have your stroke or your object selected, you can always push P, and you can always continue on where you left off. Just in case you guys get deselected somehow or something like that. It's good to know that you can continue editing. You don't have to start over. Now this curve here, this is basically half a circle. So we could try and get this as close as we could, but you'll notice that it's never going to be quite perfect. We can't quite get it just right. So what I look for when I'm doing curves like this, where they kind of go back on itself, is I'm going to go right to the middle of basically the center point. So in this case, it's not necessarily the center point, but it is a flat area right in there. So I'm going to go right to that area. Click, drag. You'll notice now that it's a much more accurate line. Now, what's going to happen now is I've got too much now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click here anyway, even though it's not correct, and I'm going to continue on. And we'll come back and fix this in a little bit. Click again. In this one, I'm going to go to this kind of flat area here, and then finish it off. And you'll notice that I'm editing this curve as well, which we don't want. All right, so now we've got kind of an ugly shape here. We need to fix this up. So I'm going to turn off my fill again, so I just have the outline. And I'm going to push D, or go up and get our subselect tool. So it's the white mouse. And I'm going to start fixing up some of my curves. So this line here, I'm just going to go right, come on, about there. I'm going to move this one out a little bit. We can make this line go right all the way in if we want. Just make sure that your curve is accurate. Something like that's good. Same with this one. So I'm just going to drag this one down until it's in the right spot. There we go. Okay, good. So we have this sort of eagle shape. Let's get this eye on here as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back into my pen tool. I'm just going to really quickly trace out this eye. Good. Now what we can also do, let's see, I haven't actually practiced with this one, but let's get this kind of cool lightning bolt shape on either side of the wings here, or the head here. So I'm actually gonna go outside of our of our area. Click there. And I'll show you what we're going to do. So once you're on the outside, I'm just going to basically make this big shape along the outside. We're going to do the same thing here. So make sure it's on the outside. Cut that out. Make sure you don't clip out any other spots. Okay. So now, first of all, I'm going to work with this eyeball here. So I'm going to get this, put the stroke back on for the eagle. Maybe I'll change it to a slightly different color just so we can see what we're working with here. And I'm going to select the, make sure that, okay, so this is our, that's our body, that's the eye. I'm going to have the eye selected, and I'm going to have the body selected. Now I want to punch this eye out. So I'm going to go up into my compound shape menu here. I'm going to click on the subtract button. And what will happen is it effectively just punches out a hole in my design. Pretty handy. Now I'm going to do the same thing with these areas here, but the difference is I want to make sure that I keep this eagle nice and I don't want to affect this at all. And just to be safe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this image on itself. So if I go Control C and Control V, what happens is I've basically made a secondary compound shape, which is good. So now what we can do is with this top, oh, they're both connected, that's right. Here, I'll try this again. With this, this shape here and this shape here, I'm going to go up into, oops, into here. I'm going to do the intersect. So what's going to happen is I have now a shape here, but I've lost my initial head, which I don't want. So we got to make sure that that is safe. So let's copy and paste this entire compound path. There, now we've got two of these. Click on this guy, click on this guy, subtract, there we go. That's that, that's that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to figure out what goes where, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, this shape here again is, let's name some stuff just so we don't get too confused here. First, let's do this. So this and this, same thing. We're going to go intersect. And we've lost this. So we need to make sure that this one, there we go. Okay, now one more time, we're going to copy and paste this. Control C. Control V. And intersect. There we go. And last time we're going to grab the eye again and subtract that away. So what we can do is with these, we can now, let's group these two together. So I'm just going to go Control G. So now these two objects should be in its own group. So we can move those around. We've also, why is this eye still not good here? All right, let's get this out of here. There we go. Can delete this compound shape. I think it's an extra one. Click on this and click on the eye and subtract. And we should, why aren't you working here? Subtract. I think we've got an extra thing here someplace. Unlock some things. Anyways, we'll just leave it for now. I'll look into that a little later. Not sure why it's not working for me. Okay, but now we can get rid of our image, and we should have this sort of shape, which I'm going to group together all into one. All these things should be grouped. There we go. And now we can move this around a little bit. That's my problem. I got an extra one of these. Get rid of you. There we go. Okay, so if you click on certain things, we can also start changing the colors of elements as well. So you should be able to just click on this. So let's start naming some stuff. So this is the right color. Let's call that right. This is the left. This is body. Okay. Should be able to start coloring things individually now. So for instance, I want this to be kind of this cool red shield effect. So I'm going to click and get a nice red color. I'm going to turn off my stroke. Click on this one. And I want these two to be the same. So I'm going to shift click on both and get rid of the stroke again. And I'm gonna get a nice kind of darker red. Looks pretty sharp there. Cool. Great. So now I've got this kind of neat crest for my shield. And of course I can scale this up. Make sure that you push shift in order to maintain your aspect ratio. And let's get this right in the center of our image. So I'm going to select both areas. I'm going to go over to the right hand side here. It says align center. So everything's going to line up one on top of the other. Do the same thing there. So now these two things are centered on each other. They're not centered to the entire image. In order to do that, let's click on both things. And you'll notice that a line pops up when things are right in the middle. That's dead center right there. Great. Okay, let's get a nice dark background here so we can kind of see things pop up a little better. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. The shortcut for that is R, and I'm just going to make a giant box right along the outside of the image. Let's get a nice kind of dark blue color, something like that. Looks good. And I'm going to take this rectangle to the bottom of the stack of layers. So we have this nice sort of image popping out. Now, what could we do to make this look a little cooler? Let's add a gradient to our shield. I think that could look good. So with our shield selected, I'm going to go to our fill, click on the fill, and up at the top we have color fill. Click on that, you'll have a linear gradient. Now if you click on that, you get this kind of cool gradient that shoots across the entire thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to either on this line or on this gradient up here, we can change our gradient. So I'm just going to click kind of dead center as close to it as I can. And that makes another node for us to edit stuff. Now from here I can go and I can click on this node and I can change this to white, say, or gray, or whatever. We can change it to whatever color that we want. Red. I don't think we want that, but something like this could look good. Again, something like that. And of course then we can like change the angle of this gradient as well. So if you want a really close thing, something like that. If you want a bit of an angle, it's fine too. I think I'm actually okay with it being straight up and down, kind of like this sort of middle line going through like that. I'm going to change the color of the center a little bit. I'm just going to darken it a little bit like that. There, it looks good. So already that's starting to look pretty sweet. Let's make this a little bigger. Oops. Remember, if you push Shift and if you push Alt, it'll scale from the center. If you don't push Alt, it's going to scale from whatever angle, whatever anchor point that you select. But if you push Alt, it'll scale from the center. So I'm going to try and get this close as I can to the center, while kind of the center of the mask there. So that looks good. Okay, it's looking pretty good here now. Now there's one other thing that I want to add to this, and that is a highlight, kind of this glow on maybe this side of the shield, kind of like a reflection. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to use my pen tool. We're going to introduce a new tool function right now. So if I click on where the pen tool is, a little arrow, there's this Bezigon tool. The shortcut for that is B. So if you click on that, it operates very similarly to the pen tool, where you just click and it does stuff. But if you click and push Alt, you'll end up getting kind of these this guide already popping in. So if I push Alt and hold, something like that, and now if I just click regularly over here, it's going to make a perfect curve for me from that point to that point to that point. So this is a very handy tool, and I can go and make an ice cream cone or whatever, right? So what I'm going to use this for is I'm going to zoom right in on my shield, because I don't want it to clip the shield. I just want to do something like there. And again, I'm pushing Alt. And I'm holding. Something like that. And then I'm going to click again over here. And it's going to follow this curve very closely. Might not be exactly perfect, but we can always edit it a little later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push Alt again. And click something like that. And maybe again here. So I kind of get this curve like that. Now I'm going to click again. I'm going to make it kind of line up again with there. Push Alt. There, and click again. So now I've got this nice shape here. I'm noticing that my path is at the very, very bottom though. So I'm going to make sure that this is at the top. There, that looks more like it. I'm going to change this to kind of a gray color. Now you'll notice that it's actually taking out part of our design, which kind of sucks, right? So there's a few things that we could do. We could move this underneath of our design so that you kind of get this red on top. That looks kind of neat. I'll call this highlight as well. But maybe let's leave it at the top, and I'm going to show you kind of a cool thing. We can change the opacity of this fill here. So I just do 50%. It'll change it to a 50%, but I don't really love this sort of pink thing going on here. So let's change this back to 100. Oops. What I want to do is I want to change this to screen. This is what I really want. So what happens now is that it's taking this kind of gray and it's changing it to a brighter color, and it's also giving us some information underneath. Click on this again. If I change the darkness of it, it's going to become less vibrant. So I kind of like having this sort of a shield reflective glow, something like that. It looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. If you want to do another one, you could always just push Control, oops, not Control, Alt, and then you could have another one someplace else. You could clip this out to kind of get a nice, nice image. So let's try and do that. So I'm going to use the Bezigon tool again, and I'm just going to click on the outside. I'm going to Alt click and click again right at the corner. Alt click, and then click again there. Now I can just kind of highlight the entire image. I can have both of these selected and then subtract. Now I've got a perfect outline of that image. Looks pretty good. Nice. Okay. So those are kind of the basics of some of the tools that we're going to be starting to use in Gravit Designer. There's one other thing, and that's uploading fonts. But maybe we'll save that for another video. This is looking pretty good already. I don't want to take up too much time. So yeah, practice this. See if you can make a shield very similar to this. If you want to use your own design on the crest, that's fine too. But yeah, make your own and submit it in Google Classroom. Have a good day, guys.